If you remember last time, we just finished talking about Ma'ili Kukahi. We were starting to talk about Umi Aliloa. So this is 1600, 1600 AD. If you only remember one thing about Umi, remember this, division of labor. That's on the test. That's on the final exam. But what is it? What is division of labor? Yeah, and that's how it says it in the when the historian Samuel Kamakau, when he wrote it down, he said, Umi set people to the jobs they were best suited for. So this is a beginning towards a move towards what we have now, which is a division of labor that's extremely, extremely specialized. Sometimes I say division of labor is not some idea in history, it's actually the reason why you're sitting here in this room. It's the reason why you're here. Why? Because you're starting out right now with a general education, getting ready to start to specialize. And the more you specialize, the more successful you'll be in this system. Right now we have a system that rewards super specialized workers. Right? So you don't become just a lawyer. You don't become even just a tax lawyer. You're a corporate tax lawyer. You have like almost like a double, triple specialty. That's why you're here. Unless anybody wants to be just a general worker. Any general laborers here, getting ready to just be like a handyman? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. No, because you don't get rewarded for that. Get rewarded for fitting into the division of labor with a skill that's very valuable. Umi also created a Hawa'a system on Hawaii in 1600. Why did it take so much longer for Umi to do that than Ma'ili Kukahi on Oahu? Two reasons.
He wasn't
Okay. That's a good point. Let me tell you the story. Here's a story of Umi. This picture here is not Umi. That might be Kumemeha. I'm not sure. But this one here is Umi. This young boy here. The story is that Umi was conceived when Liloa, the king, that's him, was traveling in the countryside, and he came across a beautiful woman, and they had a rendezvous, which led to her becoming pregnant. So you know what I mean by that. When he saw that she was pregnant, he said, if it's a boy, name him Umi. If it's a girl, name her on your side. So, and then she said, how are we going to be able to prove that it's your son, if it is a boy? And he said, I'll give you these heirlooms. He gave her a Nihupalawa necklace like this, a whale tooth necklace, his malo, and his spear. So when Umi grew up, got to be around age 10, he kind of had a sense that he had another father who he didn't know, and he asked his mother, and she said, yes, your father's the king, and he asked to travel to visit him. So this is the scene of their reunion. It took him several days to get to Waipio Valley, which is this valley here. Very, very fertile valley on Hawaii Island. And this is the scene of their reunion. He shows him the heirlooms. So he's brought into the royal household as this half Makainana son of Liloa. And so he grows up there, but he's not the heir to the throne. There's an older brother named Hakau who is the heir. He is what they call Ni'aupio. The word here, it means a product of incest. And the closer related your parents are, the higher your rank in Hawaiian society. So Hakau was Ni'aupio. He was the heir to the throne. When Liloa died and Hakau became king, he was very cruel to the people and very much hated. So Umi was banished because Hakau was, jealous of his good looks. And so he lived as a makanana, but then a kahuna recognized him, could kind of tell from his breeding that this must be the lost chief Umi, and basically built an army around Umi, and they attacked Takao and defeated him, and then Umi became the king. So when he does the division of labor, it's after he's king. That's a long answer to your question. Okay, so we talked about Pono a little bit last time with Ma'irukukahi. So Umi is another one who achieves Pono. How do we know? Well, if you read the story, you see that there are these traditional Hawaiian metaphors in his story. I think that mainly I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking about these metaphors. Malama Aina, everybody knows what that means, or at least you think you do. What is it? Care of the land. But Aina is not land exactly. It's na, mea, ai. It's that which feeds. And so it's not the sand on the beach, and it's not the top of the mountain ridges. It's not rocky land. It's agricultural land. Okay, malama means to care for, but if that's true, when Umi is a chief, how do chiefs practice malama aina? Because they don't work in the lo'i, right? So here is the li'i. Here's the makainana. Makainana gives something to a li'i. You know what that is? What do they provide? Food through their labor. Makainana provide labor. What do a li'i provide? Makainana. On a daily basis. Leadership, yeah, administration, you might say. They are making sure that there's enough food for everybody in the district or whatever their government is. They're looking at the big picture. Okay, so the way that ali'i practice malama aina is to, not to malama aina itself, but to malama those ma ka aina. Na is plural. You might say na poe, maka aina. Maka aina na. Those on the land. That's what maka aina means. So ali'i practice malama aina by malamaing the maka aina. Yeah, because they're not really supposed to work in the fields. Now Umi himself, because he wasn't actually half Makainana, he was half low-level chief. That's what Akahia, his mother was. Her name was Akahia Kuleana. She was a low-ranking chief. In fact, she was related to Liloa. But because he was low-ranking on one side, he actually did go in the lo'i and practice malama aina directly. Okay, so malama aina is not just, cleaning up the beach. In fact, that's not malama aina. When you go and do your senior service project and then you come back after you clean up Hanaumo Bay and you come back and say, "Look at me, I practiced malama aina." Actually, you didn't, because the beach is not aina. It's not something that feeds. Malama aina is about this reciprocal relationship between ali'i and makainana. And what happened was, after Western contact, they started to grow sandalwood, and what that did was, it started a pattern of abuse of makainana. They were kind of exploited for their labor, and the administration side, this wasn't taken care of. So that's, Westerners arrive, this side goes away. And then the missionaries arrive, and they see this. Makainana give, ali'i take, and don't give. And what do they relate this to? How do they see that? Coming from the United States in the 1820s. Slavery. They say the answer to this exploitation is to just get rid of this and split the Aliki from the Makainana. So they said everybody should have their private lands. Makainana has small lands. Aliki have large lands. So Makainana become small farmers, and Aliki become large estate managers. And that was their solution to make it like the United States. Okay, so Malama Aina is not just taking care of land; it's this reciprocal relationship that was severed early on in Western contact by the 1830s or 1840s. It's already gone. Okay. What about Aikapu? Okay, sorry? Okay, so yeah, restricted eating. The restriction is men and women eat separately. When you hear that, men and women separate, what's the very first thing that comes into your mind? Sexism. Because you think that men and women separate must be separated like this. Men, women. Now, why do you think that? Any other guesses? Put it this way, why do you, as a modern day, present day Hawaiian, think that aikapu means this kind of separation that is sexist? As a modern day Hawaiian, living today in an American society. Because this is how society right now is here. This is how American society is separated. Don't take my word for it. It's a fact that for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 77 cents. It used to be 59 cents, and then it went up to 79 cents, and went back down a little bit to 77. That's a really good question. Most people say it's as simple as because of the very subtle sexism in the society, men tend to negotiate harder, and they're given what they ask. I'll just give you an example to illustrate. So there was a school, there was a female teacher who had been there 30 years, and she was mentoring a brand new male teacher who was less than 30 years old. He's 25 years old, didn't know anything that he was doing, and she's mentoring him. He doesn't know anything. She's showing him all the ropes, how to do the work, how to teach, and then on a casual lunch conversation, she finds out that he is making twice as much as she is. That's just a kind of extreme example of how men negotiate and they get more, just the outcome of it. There's a lot of things like that in society. We're going to talk about institutional racism. It's not just men, it's also Caucasians, all these factors that are, it's hard to find out why it happens, but we can measure the result. This is a fact. There was a protest where these women were selling like brownies, and they said, if men buy the brownies, it's $1. If women buy them, it's 77 cents. Because that's the same amount of money relative to their salaries. So it's Western society that's actually set up like this. Hawaiian society, the separation was not like this. It was simply like this. Men, women. In fact, why separate them at all? Well, because we talked about pono. If pono means balance, you have to have two things to balance off against each other. So you have men on one side, women on the other side. They balance each other off. It's not men superior. It's just simply different roles. Now, if you go to New Zealand and you go to Marae, and the Maori do their protocol, and they say, no, women can't speak on the marae, which is really the flat area in front of the house. Women can't speak. And then the American women are always like, oh, that's sexist. But the Maori women are the first to say, no, it's just different roles. The women are always the only ones who can call people into the marae. In Hawaiian society, it's actually more important who your mother is, your genealogy on your mother's side, than your father's side. Why? Because you always know who the mother is. You never know for sure who the father is, because they weren't monogamous, right? They had multiple partners, multiple spouses. You don't know who the father is. We don't know who Kumemea's father was. So women's genealogy is more important, that line. So Aikapu is not actually about sexism, something immoral. It's actually about the opposite, pono. It's about creating a balance in society. Men have roles, women have roles. Women, yes, they're oppressed. They can't eat bananas and certain things, pork. But women also are never the object of human sacrifice. Only men. So the great Hawaiian scholar, woman scholar, who's very much of a Hawaiian feminist, Lili Kala, who wrote that book in the back there, she says, I'd gladly give up bananas and pig if I would be spared from human sacrifice. Okay, so Aikapu is not sexism, it's actually the reverse. Okay, I just made something that looks bad look good. Now, how am I gonna do that with this next one? Ni'aupio, what does it mean? How am I gonna do this? Well, a couple years ago, I figured out the power of Ni'aupio. I figured it out when, there's a sovereignty movement, right? And so people want to bring back the kingdom. And that means there's going to be a monarch with actually elections for the monarch. So if you were to run for a monarchy of Hawaii, you'd have to do, there's two parts to your election. One is, what are you going to do for the people? And the second part is, who are you? When I say, who are you, what do I mean by that? Your genealogy. Okay, so you got to present your genealogy. Kalaka always did this when he was running. So I'm going to run for King of Hawaii, and I'm going to present my genealogy. I'm going to call myself U2 Umi II. Okay, so here's me. Here's my two parents. Everybody has two parents. Here's my four grandparents. And 8. Yeah. And if you go back 16, 2, it goes out like that exponentially. And if you go back about however many generations, there's Umi the first. And if you go his sons, daughters, daughter, and then it comes down to me. So therefore, I should be King of Hawaii. Yeah? Okay. Only thing is I have an opponent. And he's going to call himself Kumemea'a VI. And he says he's going to give land to everybody. I say I'm going to give everybody iPads. But he presents his genealogy. So he says, here's my genealogy. I have two parents. Everybody has two parents. But they're brother and sister. So he doesn't have 4 grandparents. He only has 2. 2 grandparents. He's got 4 great-grandparents, whereas I have 8. But they're all cousins, so it goes back to another original 2 again. Goes out to 4. Back to 2. And so it's got this in and out kind of spiraling DNA pattern that goes almost straight, whereas mine goes out exponentially. So genealogists would come along and they would assess our claims to the throne, and they would say, okay, yeah, that's Umi, and there's a line there, but half of these people aren't even Hawaiian at all, and most of the rest are all Makainanos. Well, what about this guy? Well, for Kumemea'a VI, you guys know there's only 4 Kumemea'as, right? 5 Kumemea'as. There's only 5 Kamehamehas, so if anyone calls himself Kamehameha the Sixth, I know a guy who calls himself Kamehameha the Eighth, which is really funny because then it assumes that you know who the 6th and the 7th are. There's only 5, but this is the 6th right here. They look at him and they say, okay, this guy has all these Irish and Mafenanas. This guy, every single one of these people is not only Hawaiian, they are royals. This guy has nothing but royal in him. So Kamehameha the Sixth wins by a landslide. See how that works? That is the power of Ni'aupio. The bloodline does not get diluted. Okay? And then, lastly, Imi Haku. Imi means, anybody know? I thought I heard it. Seek. Haku, Kapule Akahaku, is the what? Lord's Prayer. Haku doesn't, in this case, you might think of it as seeking status, seeking mana, seeking power, to become Lord-like. Now, Imi Haku has 2 paths. Path of Ku and the path of Lono. Path of Ku is the path of violence or politics. Path of Lono is path of peace. Often that path of peace, it's not like hugging trees or something like that. It is advantageous marriages. So if you're one of those people who thinks you're going to get rich by marrying a rich person, that's path of Lono. And it actually includes also practicing Malama Aina. Malama Aina is path of Lono because Lono is the god of agriculture. You're cultivating, but that cultivation is actually can be used to build up an army. It can also be used to feed people and get loyalty towards you. So this goes back around here, so they're in a way they're cyclical. Okay. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Just some pictures about Umi. I have a photograph on my wall about this place, Ahu Aumi, his shrine. There was a place on the slopes of Hualalai in Kona, or above Kona, and it was a place where he collected taxes, and it was really good for seeing if there's any armies developing, checking weather. Very ingenious placement of this Ahu. We even know, this is a top view of Waipi'o, we even know where Umi's actual personal farm was, there in the middle of the valley. Here's Waipi'o if you were on the ground. There's even a mystery in history, not Umi himself, but his father, Liloa, and his grandson, who is named Lono Ika Makahiki. Their remains were in the Bishop Museum, and they were stolen and probably returned, probably to Waipi'o, and nobody knows who did it or where they are. Actually, I know, but I can't say. No, it wasn't me. Umi moved the capital from Waipi'o to Keauhou, Kona, and there's this this condo complex here that used to be called Umi Hale. Okay, that's just kind of an aside.